So thanks for joining us tonight for our presentation on exploring Central Oregon's Un-groomed ski trail. It's my pleasure to introduce Eric Ness and Sue Sullivan from the Central Oregon Nordic Club. Eric is a past president of CONC, and Sue is the current vice president who coordinates the maintenance of these beautiful trails that we will be discussing tonight. So please join me in welcoming them.
Thank you, Becca. Welcome to everybody, and I trust everybody's better prepared for the ski season than I am. So this boot will come off in a couple of weeks, but I think it's going to be a slow go. So let's just dive right in. The first thing I want to talk a little bit about is our club. This is the homepage, CONordicClub.org. Anybody can go on this. We're quite proud of this website. On this homepage, we have our missions, and besides organizing tours and for both skiing, snowshoeing, and in the summer hiking, we maintain over 100 miles of cross-country and snowshoe trails, and these are all in the snow parks around Bend. We also maintain the warming shelters and stock them with wood, so if you've ever gone up and lit a fire, we're happy you have done that. Because it makes it more fun. We advocate for the protection of the backcountry experience, so Sue is also very involved in coordinating other trail organizations in Bend, and it's really critical to get everybody aligned. We also teach Nordic skills, so if you join, you have to be a member, but membership is $30. And we'll our 26th season is already up on the website. So we're already moving forward. And then finally, we organize a lot of social events. We'll be referring to our website a lot. Like I said, we're quite proud of it. We work very closely. All the trails are on the National Forest. And so we work very closely with the Forest Service and try to maintain a very good relationship. And they rely on us. They don't have the manpower to put in 2,500 hours of volunteer work for maintaining the trails. So what do we mean by ungroomed and groomed and backcountry? So groomed, hopefully everybody knows, but you see the big red piston bully at Meissner pulling this big sled, and that sled will create these grooves standard width of 70 millimeters. Remember that number. What you get is a very stable, very uniform surface for the skiing. And what that means is you can get your skis in the track and close your eyes and go, because you just go. Now, when you go to an ungroomed, if you're lucky, there's been a previous skier and they've left their tracks. The problem is those tracks are going to have non-uniform width. They'll have a non-uniform surface, and a lot of places it'll be kind of soft, and you may come back this way. No, you won't. But what we do is we mark all these trails, and we keep them cleared of obstacles, and that means any log above 12 inches. So you can't go out after an inch of snow. You need a bit of snow for these trails. And like I said, they're found at most snow parks. So backcountry, what we really are talking about is someplace that doesn't have these markers, so they're not trails. You're going out further, and you have to rely on GPS and topo maps. We use markers. Actually, it was controlled by the Forest Service. They're blue diamonds. The snowshoers use this marker, and they've been very consistent. So you'll find always that one marking a snowshoe trail. Us Nordic people haven't been so consistent. You might see one of these out on the trails. This is a 50-year-old marker, and it's metal. So we started using the blue diamond, and we thought this the reflective diamond in the middle was nice, and then we thought, oh no, this is better here with a little more reflective. And now we're also making metal standoff markers. And the intent there is we don't have to replace them every 2 or 3 years when these degrade from UV. This is not an equipment talk. if you're in the mode to buy skis, go to your local shop. There's a lot of experts, a lot of good shops. Talk to them about what you want to do. Now, the problem is that you have skis that range from, on the left, that's 44 millimeters. This ski is not appropriate for any kind of non-tracked, non-groomed trail. So you wouldn't use that. But then it goes from 55 millimeters, which is my old yellow pokey, all the way up to 109 millimeters. And what happens when you do this, when you go wider and wider, and it just seems like the industry is pushing people to wide skis. The problem is that ski on the end, it's heavy. Plus, to use it well, you need a stiff boot. And so that's what I use when I go up Vista Butte or Tumalo, and I want to telly down. But it's too heavy to really go out to Broken Top. What I use for Broken Top is the 78 millimeter wide ski. It's lighter, the boot's lighter, but I can do the 11-mile round trip without killing myself. Now, if you're in the mode where you just want one ski and you want to do some track and you want to do some ungroomed, we recommend a 62 to 68 millimeter wide ski. And remember, the track is 70 millimeters, so a 62 to 68 will fit in that track. And these skis, you can find them quite easily, readily with metal edges, and they typically have the no-wax base. You really want a no-wax base when you go off the track. That happens to be my wife, so it's a little bit smaller, shorter. So given all that, don't discount the narrow ski, that yellow one I bought in 1978. It's been more places, steeper places, deeper places, icier places than any of the other skis. So you can still do it. It's just a little bit easier depending on what you're doing with wider skis. So my next goal is, if you go out, make sure the boot fits the binding. It's kind of obvious, right? But yet, when you get a bunch of skis, we've had this situation where we go to do a tour, and somebody sits there for 5 minutes trying to get their boot in, and they finally realize, oh, it doesn't go in that binding. And what's going on is that there are so many bindings out there now. It used to be, the standard was called the Nordic norm. It's a 75 millimeter 3-pin binding that we still use, some of us old folks, I guess, for telemark skiing, because it's wide, it gives you a pretty good grip. Everything has gone to the bar type binding, but even in the bar type, there are so many different versions. There's the backcountry, which is wide on my pokies, and then there's the less robust. And along with this, when you go to these bindings, you want to get a boot, if you're going to go off the track, that's a little bit higher because you're going to be in deep snow, and a little bit stiffer. So my gear's all old, but Warren brought his skis in that are new last year, and they've got the newest binding, which is called the Explorer. And it's just, what they're trying to do is get the torsion stiffer so that when you torque your foot, the ski's going to respond. And so it mounts a little bit different.
I don't even know how to do this, so there we go. Give the guy who owns them.
So there's a whole nother class of skis called all-terrain AT gear. They're going to be wider than anything I have. You're going to be using bindings kind of like the Explorer, and you're going to have boots that are like downhill boots. They don't bend. And we're not really talking about that here. That's for the steeps. And then finally, when you go to your poles, you want a wider basket. So just because you're going to be in the powder. And I think now Sue's going to talk about what to wear. So we've got a number of slides that we called Before You Go.
Yeah, I got to just make sure I know which one is back. Okay. Okay, so in general, I'm assuming most people have done stuff in the outdoors, and maybe you've also done stuff in the wintertime in the Northwest, and the general rule about cotton kills. Cotton will hold moisture, and like the good cotton sweatshirt that you enjoy in the summer is not going to be the thing you're going to want to wear in the wintertime. you're going to want to wear wool or synthetics, non-wicking kind of outerwear, and dress in layers. And what I have is usually a light layer and then something warmer over the top, and then I'll wear a fleece over the top of that, and then I'll have a rain jacket or something like that. So dressing in layers gives you options, because once you get out and ski, you're going to warm up, and then you're going to want to adjust. And so having the ability of being flexible about which layer you have on is going to help you to be comfortable all day. Socks, gloves, same idea. You're going to want stuff that's non-wicking, and so will not hold water. And sunscreen is important here all winter long, just because we're at high elevation. So, and always carry a pack. So I have a pack here. I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail about what I have in it, but I'm going to talk a little bit about it. If you're in any sort of an area that is away from your car for more than 45 minutes, and you have some kind of an injury or something happens where you have to stay put for a while, you're going to have to be ready to stay warm for a while. And you can't, if you don't have the stuff with you and you have to count on other people, they may not have the stuff you need, or they may need stuff themselves. So I'm kind of a strong advocate for always carrying a pack, even on trails. I mean, I'm the fool that you see out there when everybody else has got a little fanny pack and I've got this huge pack. I did mountain rescue work for 22 years, so I have seen things go wrong. And I will say, if you do that kind of work and you see things go wrong, you always carry a pack. But a few of the crucial things is I have like a bag with essentials in it. I have extra batteries for my flashlight. I've got flashlight. I've got extra batteries that I can use for my phone if my phone should die and I need it. I carry food and water. I usually, in the wintertime, I will carry hot tea, because that's nice to have. It helps you keep warm if you need to stop, and it's just nice anyway. This is a puffy coat and an extra hat, and it takes up almost no extra room. So just having something like this so that you can keep warm. If you are down, from my experience with mountain rescue, you can expect an hour and a half before somebody gets to you. So think about if you stop for lunch when you're out recreating and you start to feel chilly just while you're eating lunch and you don't have extra clothes to put on, that should be an indication to you that you're not carrying enough stuff with you. I carry a shovel on things that are not front country. You know, if I'm going back country, I for sure have this thing. This is just it's a scoop type shovel, and it also can double as something to sit on if it's wet. I also carry a foam pad for being insulated off the ground. They come out with much nicer ones than this one. I hate to tell you how old this one is. I have a bag with a repair kit. So it's got an extra ski pole basket. It's got some straps. It's got some wax. I have a first aid kit. Now, I will say about first aid kits, in the summertime, you need a first aid kit for cuts and bruises and all that kind of, like Band-Aids are really important. In the wintertime, actually, probably I could carry about half of this stuff. This is my summer kit, because you're not likely to have cuts and bruises. The thing you're going to have is somebody who gets too cold. And so being prepared for the cold is really super important. Then I also have an extra hat. I have a rain jacket, and I have extra gloves and a neck gaiter. So I have plenty of things that will allow me to keep warm. Now for shelter, I have a plastic bag, and I use just like an enormous plastic bag. You can punch a hole in this for your face and sit on your pack, and it will work really well if you just sit on your pack with this over the top of you to keep you warm, as opposed to bringing something fancy like a bivy bag or something like that. I also have a shelter, but I carry that mostly because I'm carrying for 2 people, because the person I ski with, I don't want to have too much weight because he's 96. And so I have enough stuff so that I can keep both of us in a shelter. And I think most people, that's probably in excess of what they would do. But that's kind of the basics of what I have in here. And if you have questions about it or want to see anything, I'm happy to show you later. So we want to talk a little bit about some true stories of things that have gone wrong.
These are personal stories. The first one is me. I used to work in Michigan, and we went up into Canada, Superior Provincial Park. We decided we're going to ski up the, not the Agua, yeah, the Agua River. And on going from the bank onto the ice on the river, I went in, and I was the third person. You know, there were three of us together, and I was the third person. And somehow, I'm the one that went in. My skis were under the ice. My buddy Greg had to come in and help me just get my skis situated to get him out of the ice. I got onto the ice in the middle of the river. All I did was reach in my pack, pull out wool socks, change my socks, and keep going. And the reason I could do that is because I had a 1/4-inch thick wool union suit, and then I had Army surplus wool pants. This day, when we got to camp, so we camped that night, when we got to camp, the first guy was carrying a bottle of sherry, and it froze. But by the time we got to camp, I was dry, and it was. I'm still kind of in shock that this happened, but it's just like a miracle. So the other one is also mine. Myself and two buddies, Scott and Dave, went up onto Tam MacArthur Rim. We spent a couple of nights up there. Coming down around Three Creeks Lakes, David's binding just popped off. Fortunately, the screws were trapped between the binding and his boot. And so I had, Sue mentioned, carry some kind of tool, and I had a Leatherman multi-tool. I stuffed sticks into the little holes and screwed the screws in. And okay, so David got on them. I thought we're set. We went 100 yards. It popped out again. But what was really obvious to me is David's just this fantastic guy, but he's not that coordinated. He's kind of a hard, rough skier. Scott, much lighter, very smooth skier. They both happen to have the same boots and bindings. So I made them switch. So I, again, stuffed sticks into the twigs, screwed in the screws, and we made it out, which is like another 4 miles to the car park. And so it's a combination of tools and then, assessing the situation and trying to think through. And that's just kind of normal life, I think.
The last one is one that I was involved with. A member of our party fell into a creek and ended up completely submerged, unlike his incident where, he went in like to here. And we were 2 miles from the trailhead. It was 22 degrees and snowing and windy. And it was on the way to Todd Lake. So that's just near here. And lots of people ski into Todd Lake with nothing in terms of a pack. And here we were. And it took us almost 5 minutes to get him out because the snowbank was like, 3 feet deep, 4 feet deep. Plus he's down in the creek. He has to take off his skis to hand them out to get him out. So it took us a while to get him out. But I had this little shelter, so we put a foam pad down and got all of the wettest stuff off of him and put dry clothing from the waist up and put rain pants on over the top of the wet pants on the way from the waist down. Skied out and got out before he was profoundly hypothermic. He was somewhat hypothermic, but not profoundly. He was still able to move. And, it all ended up okay. But had we not had all that stuff, it would have been very different. So, of course, that also reinforced the fact that I always carry all this stuff. I have another friend who was skiing alone and dislocated his shoulder. Now, he was skiing alone, hadn't told anybody where he was going, couldn't carry a pack. He ended up rigging up a system so he could drag the pack behind him and ski with like one pole, and skied for several miles until he came upon somebody because he was in the backcountry. And so if you travel alone, at least tell somebody where you're going. We'll talk a little bit more about some of the other precautions you should take in backcountry in a little bit. I will say again, just from my work in search and rescue, is that the outcomes that I saw that were the worst over time were generally people who were alone, who didn't tell people where they were going, and who were not adequately prepared in terms of what they had with them. And so that's the thing that I would hope that you would walk away with, is that if you are somebody who travels by themselves, and heaven only knows I've done that, and it can be some of the greatest experiences, have some friend that you just have a regular routine of, I will text you when I leave and I'll text you when I get back, or somebody that will know where you've gone. And consider something like an inReach if you are traveling in backcountry by yourself, because it's just really important to be able to communicate and get help. And I think it's back to you.
So this again is from our web page. It's under the resources tab up there. And this is one of the best charts I've ever seen. Our current president, Warren, put it together. He imagined it. He put it together. It's pretty incredible. Shows all the snow parks, now most of the snow parks. And again, this is right on our website. You can just go, even if you're not a member, just go on our website and go to resources. Tells you things like, okay, are dogs allowed? This is important to a lot of people. And so there you check it off. And groom ski, he even put Meissner and Winogo out there, even though we're a non-groomed club. Does it have a dedicated snowshoe? I happen to really like Newberry here. The problem I run into sometimes is if a snowshoer gets on there, they tend to do this, and you want to do this, and it can be difficult. What I try to do is get up there before they do. And then which ones have the warming shelters? And even Warren's put in here, approximate distance from Bend. You can see Sandy M is probably the furthest on this chart, but still worth it. But it doesn't stop there. What Warren did is on each of these names are linked. Touch Dutchman Flat, and you come to this screen. So here's your map of the Dutchman Flat. This is actually going out the Flag Line Trail, but here's your snow park here, and here's the, where is the Nordic Center? It's right in here somewhere.
Right
here.
Right there.
So there's the Nordic Center. So those are your two access points. Gives a great description of what's up there. He even teases you with as an ambitious skier. You could try skiing this flag line down to Swampy. But you got to ask yourself, how hard is that? He gives you this cautionary that snowmobiles use this area. He also talks about the Common Corridor Pass, which you got to have just to go from the hut down into the Dutchman area.
From the Nordic Center.
Yeah, the Nordic Center. So the other things on here is you can get a Avenza map, and I'll talk about Avenza a little bit more. It's an app for your phone. You can get weather forecast. So he's got this great link to the forecast of Dutchman Flats, plus the easy one going to Bachelor. What I want to look at next is the trail descriptions. So let's say you want to go up there and you want an easy day. Well, you might want to do Dutchman Loop. So it's easy and it describes the route. Maybe you're a little more ambitious and you want to go down to Todd Lake. Well, you see you've got a little bit of intermediate. It's a pretty good hill on one section. Since he mentioned flag line in the beginning, why don't I do flag line? You got to have a shuttle from Swampy up to Dutchman, but you also have to be a pretty good skier. It's going to be a difficult area there. This is only part of the trails up at Dutchman. It's all that would fit on one slide. But this is the case for every one of these. You'll get these, all of this information. So about Avenza, so it's an app, free app. It has the weirdest icon. Looks to me like a snow cone. I can't figure out what it's supposed to be. But you can download it on your map. And the reason this is nice, that I like it, is if you go to the trail head, and the kiosk there will have the map of the area. This happens to be swampy. That is the map that you can get on Avenza. Now, this QR code is supposed to link up to the Forest Service site, but given the cuts they've had and the government shutdown, it's probably not working. But you can go to Avenza Maps, and you can go to the store. There's like a quote-unquote store. Most of these maps are free. More importantly, Laura in our club has made 3 videos from introduction to using Avenza to advanced topics in Avenza. It's all on our website. You can go there now. You don't have to be a member. So if I'm out there skiing and I don't see a blue dot, I don't know where I am. so I just love it. You have seen this map. Our snowshoe guy, I guess, put these together, Bob Timmer. He calls them the one map, and it's like an overview. He has one just for snowshoeing, and then he has one for everything. So this is the one for everything. It's also on our website if you want to print it out or look at it. It shows just an incredible amount of stuff. It shows this is Century Drive going up to Bachelor. He shows where the shelters are. He shows that north of Century, it's no dogs. And then when you come down on the road towards Sun River, you can have your dogs. And then shows Edison. This is not right. This shelter here has burned down in the fire. But he also shows all of the yellow tracks there are groomed. And then the blue are not groomed. So I've also added a few other snow parks. I live south of Sun River. I go to Newberry quite a bit. Up just north of Century is Skyliner Park. And then further out by Sisters is Three Creek Snow Park. Up at San Ian Pass, you have Ray Benson. And then out in the Ochoco's, past Prineville, there's a couple of snow parks. So that's what we're going to start talking about now. And I'm going to hand it over to Sue. She's more familiar. We've kind of split these up. Who knows these areas better?
Yeah, so this is the trails out of the Dutchman Flat area. And both of these pictures are actually a little beyond the Dutchman. This is think outside the Blue Diamonds area, where if you get beyond the Blue Diamonds, you can get up into some country that looks like that. But Dutchman is generally moderate to challenging trails. The topography is different from the lower down ones, in that you get into big pondos at Swampy or at Meisner or at Edison. But you get up to here, and now you're into hemlocks and old growth, and it's a whole different experience. It's really beautiful. I would say most of the trails are intermediate or harder, with the exception of Dutchman Loop, which was the one that I think that we talked about earlier. So this is the relatively short one. Oops, I didn't want to do that. What did I do? Okay.
Help, help.
Help.
No, that
Is it something I did?
I don't think so. This is a very old system. We're getting a remodel soon.
Oh, good. Well, I can talk a little bit about Dutchman at any rate while we're doing that. But there's a couple of nice tours there. One being to Todd Lake, which is about 4 miles round trip. It's downhill on the way in and uphill on the way back, which is important to remember if you're doing that as a tour. And it is it goes down to a lake with a nice view of Broken Top and a lovely place to have lunch. The other one that I'm fond of there is to do a loop that goes up what we call Big Meadow Trail, and it goes way up, and that's the one, if you get up in that area, it gives you access to some of that backcountry.
It is coming on now.
That's kind of beyond the Blue Diamonds. Real nice area. Oh, thank goodness. There we go.
Very, very well done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Also from, it's like I'm not going to touch any of these buttons. Also from, so the snow park is here, and Eric mentioned that from the Mount Bachelor parking lot, you don't need a snow park to park in the Mount Bachelor lot, and you can cut through their
You want to use one of my
trails.
pointers?
I could use one of your pointers. You can cut through their groomed trails and get to those trails without having to pay for any kind of a pass. But you have to go to their little kiosk and get the pass. And then from the snow park also, you'll see lots of people who are the backcountry telemark people climbing Tumalo and skiing off of that. It makes a nice tour. Okay, I think we've kind of covered that one. Swampy Lakes is quite popular. These are also views from some of the trails on Swampy Lakes. And it has a wide variety of trails. So it's there's everything from what we call the beginner's loop, which is, okay, I'm going to trust that this is going to not do anything right in here. That's a beginner's loop that's relatively short and recently redesigned to make it a little more beginner friendly. The most popular one is probably the Swampy Loop. So there's a shelter here that was built in 2016, quite a nice shelter. And so that's quite a popular loop. And then there's some more challenging ones, like going up Ridge Loop and then coming down, and you can make loops of all sorts of lengths here and all sorts of elevation gains, and many of them have really nice, and there's enough terrain that it spreads people out pretty well, so it makes for a nice place to tour. Even when the parking lot is full, you don't run into all that many people. Vista Butte is a personal favorite. It's named Vista Butte for a reason. It has nice views. And there's less of a trail system here, but it's a little bit more challenging terrain. The parking is right off the road. There's ski route up that's, I would say, intermediate to advanced intermediate up to Vista Butte. This terrain is all mostly open. Thanks to beetle kill, the trees are a lot of dead trees, so that there's a lot of open terrain. And so it makes for a nice telemark area, so you'll see lots of people go up there and do that. We recently put in a snowshoe trail up there, and if you are interested in snowshoeing, Bob Timmerell, I'm sure, will be talking about that first week of December here at the library. But if you are somebody who likes to skin up and ski down, the snowshoe trail makes a good skin track to go up to ski. Also, this gives you access to some nice backcountry terrain that's off the trail up in this area. It's all very open forest, and you need navigation skills for that area. Helena Falls. This one's on my list, but you actually ski here more than I do, so you probably can chime in. So this is in the Newberry area, so there's a snow park at 10 Mile, which is right about there. And so as Eric said, this is not a place that has separate snowshoe trails, so the snowshoers have a tendency to also use this trail. So I always recommend people go up this way and down this one, because this is a lot longer trail. Snowshoers aren't as likely to use it. And this is a hoot of a ski down if you hit it on the right conditions, but this is a ski that you want to do when there's fresh snow, because other than that, it is fast coming down.
Yeah, you have to have good downhill skills.
But the other cool thing about this is that this Helena Lake Lodge is open, I don't think every day of the week, but I think at least on weekends. Yeah. And you can go up there and ski up and have lunch and then come down. So that's kind of cool. Three Creek Lake area. So when it comes to views, the effort to experience ratio, view experience ratio is very good in this place, because only half a mile out of the parking lot, you get views like that. And this is an area that also snowmobiles use, but they tend to be pretty good about not being in the ski area. So the parking lot may be full of snowshoe or snowmobile, but you won't necessarily see any or hear that many of them while you're out on the trail. This is a smaller trail system, but has beautiful views. And because there was a fire here in, I think, 2012, the area is pretty open. And so the views are great, and you can ski off trail very easily in here, and very gentle terrain. So it's a very nice place to go. Also best after a fresh snowfall, because there is no shade. It can get crusty in a hurry if it's got a lot of sun on it. Edison, we're going back to.
And now this is my backyard.
This is your backyard.
The view on the right, so Edison has a lot of lava flows. So the view on the right, I think, is from the short snowshoe route. I used to really look down at snowshoeing, but after snowshoeing on the short route, short loop, I changed my mind. It's a lot of fun. You get views where the snow just drapes over the lava, you know, like frosting on a cake, if you will. This one on the left is more on the upper part of the trails, and we get into a lot of ponderosa. So this wasn't logged heavily, because if they cut down the ponderosa, it would fall on the lava and just splinter. So there's a lot of ponderosa up there. So it's very nice. Unfortunately, this is where the lava lake's fire went. So pretty much this red area here was all burned up. You can see the shelter was right in it, and it literally all that's left is a couple pieces of rebar. This is what it looks like before we put up new markers. So we spent quite a bit of time this fall remarking all of this area in the red. The only thing right now that has not been remarked is from old growth down here, the upper tie into Dynamo, but we have marked this loop and then everything in here. So what we're really concerned about is, now that it's just open, there's no shade there, how will the snow behave? Will it melt away, or will we be okay? So I split the park up into two areas. The lower trails, which I just showed was burned, and then the upper trails. So there were two snowshoe loops down in the lower trails. One was called the long loop. That has not been marked because of just the conditions of the burn. But the short loop, which is the one that I like, which you can see up here, is still there. If you're a snowshoer, I highly recommend that. The most popular route is going to be the light bulb loop. Right here, it's pretty much the closest to the parking lot up in the upper right. The problem with that loop is that you'll get walkers, and so the trail will degrade pretty fast. So again, we keep saying it's best after a fresh snowfall. Most of the time, it's best to go early too, before walkers get out. The other half is up above it, and I wanted to show a picture of AC/DC shelter. It has a good view of Bachelor, and I also wanted to get a shout out to GearFix, who has taken it upon themselves to help us out, and they stock this shelter. So it's very, very helpful to us. And that's AC/DC is up near the top, and one of the things that you want to look at, it used to be back in the day, snow parks would start at 4,000 feet. And today that elevation has moved to 5,000 feet. And so this is kind of, can be almost marginal at 5,000 feet. But going up to AC/DC, you gain altitude. And so it's the way to go. This is my favorite route. You just take from the snow park, you go up direct current and up to the AC/DC shelter. You will have, I don't know, maybe a half a dozen people in front of you, maybe only 3 or 4. But if you decide to come down AC, which is on this side, now you're probably just going to have a couple people in front of you. And at junction 111, if you decide to come down supercharger, you'll have no one in front of you. It's bizarre because, I mean, there's the road. It's just right there. It's so close. But what you've got to be careful of is you want to take the short circuit, go back on high voltage. I try to avoid light bulb, and then come back on DC. So the biggest issue with that is it's long. It's 8 miles. So you've got to be in good shape. And then again, it's best after a fresh snowfall. What happens in a lot of these, in the snow parks that are in the 5,000 foot area, is that you get a couple skiers go across it and the snow turns from fluffy to icy. But, you know, it's still it's a great route. Right, Warren? Inside joke. Santiam Pass is one that I've just begun to really enjoy. I've done a lot of off-track stuff in the backcountry, but I just started skiing at Ray Benson, and it's a wonderful spot. This Ray Benson is maintained by the Willamette branch of the Oregon Nordic Club out of Salem. But besides Ray Benson, which is right next to Hoodoo, you also have Little Nash and you've got Potato Hill. I haven't skied Little Nash because, again, it's down there. You got to really watch the snowfall. But we've skied Potato Hill quite a bit. We use it as a telemark hill. But some of my best tours this past winter were on the South Loop here in Ray Benson. What I guess I really like is it comes by Big Lake. And if you've got good ice on Big Lake and you ski on that, you get this incredible view of Mount Washington. And so that has just, I've begun to really, really enjoy this. And so one of the tours, we decided not to go back on the trail. We'll just kind of go anywhere we want in there because it's kind of rolling, kind of open. It was just a lot of fun. But again, I got to see the blue dot. And so that's something I would highly recommend. And you can see there are several shelters. They're oftentimes on snowmobile routes, so you'll be sharing them. But, the snowmobilers do a lot of cooperation with us on some of our tours later in the spring. They'll groom, is it Highway 242 up to up to McKenzie Pass. So we have a decent relationship with them. Now I want to go to the Ochocos. Ochocos are a cool place to go, but there's some caveats. Bandit Springs is right at the Ochoco Divide. I'll bet everybody has gone by there and wondered why was that called Bandit Springs? What happened? The problem with this system is no one maintains it. There are markers here and there. I've skied it once. I got very lucky. When we were driving up, you could see dirt like right off the road. And I thought, oh, there's just no way. But once we got in there, it was really nice. And there were a couple of us had a geolocated map, so we didn't rely 100% on the markers because they're kind of few and far between. But a really nice system. One of the things that I mentioned here is before you go out to the Ochocos, there is the Snowtel, the Ochoco Snowtel you have to refer to because you don't have any idea that what the snow's like out there. Nobody really reports on it. Well, there is the Snowtel actually measures the snow depth at that site, and it's a little ways away from here, but it's in the Ochocos. So definitely check that out. The other one out there is Walton Lake. I assume everybody kind of knows where Walton Lake is. A great system again. Funny thing, the Portland Club maintains this. And the reason is because they do overnights every year. And there's a Forest Service old ranger station down here that they'll stay in. And so they took it upon themselves to maintain it. And we help out. The biggest problem here is that this road off of Highway 2622 is not always plowed. Now, it's a pretty popular snowmobile area, so if it's on the weekend, it'll be plowed. If you get a big snow on the weekend, it'll get plowed. But it has happened where during the week there's a big snow, you go up the day after, and it hasn't been plowed. But the recommended route here is to go up high rim and then come down Slide Mountain. But coming, down by the lake is great too. These up on Butterfield is following an old road. It's not quite as nice, but it's still, it's different country. It's a little more rolling, and so it's kind of fun that way. And I think it goes back to Sue.
So it is fun to ski on the trails, but we often say we're the ones who put up the blue diamonds. That doesn't mean we ski in the blue diamonds. So there is lots of very nice country that is outside of the blue diamond trail system, and I just want to give you a taste of some of the things and the way they get accessed. And as I mentioned earlier, it has its risks and rewards. It's really important to be prepared for whatever you might run into when you get into backcountry, because you may not run into many other people, and any sort of rescue will take a long time. It's especially important to be aware of avalanche dangers. I think we have a link on our page. I'm not 100% sure of that, to the avalanche site. Maybe not. But there is, if you Google Central Oregon avalanche, you'll come up with these people who do keep a pretty good log of what's out there in terms of avalanche conditions. And just, especially if you're traveling with a small group, just be extra careful about being in avalanche areas. My experience with mountain rescue work in the West is that when an avalanche occurs and somebody is caught in it, 50% of the time, the person is dead by the time the snow stops. So relying on beacons or avalanche training to save you is not really necessarily going to do the trick, shall we say. Better to be careful. And good navigation skills are crucial. We have classes every once in a while in our group for GPS, map, and compass, and we have I think we have a webinar with how to use a GPS
we have the three Avenza ones.
Yeah, the Avenza ones talk about navigation. If you're relying on your phone for navigation, which I do more and more, I bring a backup battery pack in my 10 Essentials bag so that I can, if my phone runs out of battery, I've got something else, and it's capable of charging the phone 3 times or something like that. So it's plenty of backup to allow me to use it for navigation or for emergency purposes. And as I mentioned earlier, consider InReach or some other satellite-based messaging if you are traveling alone, because it's a wilderness area. Phones don't always work in the wilderness area. There's lots of places that don't have coverage, so important. Okay, Three Sisters Wilderness. So that encompasses everything from up north, the border is the Mackenzie Pass, all the way down to Mount Bachelor. And I've done like multi-day backpacking ski trips through there, and that's wonderful. But what I'm mostly going to talk about is day-type access. And so we talked about from the Dutchman trails, you can go north from those Dutchman trails, cross some area that's got some snowmobile activity, but then get into that area around the bowl of Broken Top, and it's lovely, lovely skiing. You can also get into that area in the wintertime from Three Creek Lake Snow Park, which we had the map of earlier. If you head south from there, you can get up towards Tam MacArthur Rim and up. That's a pretty long thing for a day ski. It's possible, but it's a pretty long ski. In the spring, there's a window where you can drive to within a mile or so of Pole Creek Trailhead. And that's like the perfect time to get into this area where this picture was taken up near North Sister. And it's a relatively, I would say, this is like a 5-mile ski round trip to get to where this picture was taken. So it's not a huge day, but it gets you into some amazing country. So that's one to keep in mind. And we have been creative about how we get there. 242 gets plowed before it's open to traffic, and just as they're getting it plowed out is a great time to put your skis on your bicycle and bike up and ski in from the lava flow area up there, up towards Matthew Lakes or someplace in there. So there's other ways of getting there, and I've done this up to Three Creek Lake as well, and we've done it when we lived on the other side. We did it from the west side of Mackenzie Highway and skied on lava flows all the way up to Middle Sister. So there's lots of ways to get in if you're a little bit creative. And in Sisters, I can't remember the name of the shop. Maybe you know, Mark. The shop that is in Sisters that keeps tabs on 242? Eurosport. You can check on their webpage and they'll tell you how plowed the road is. Mount Jefferson Wilderness is another great spot. So we talked about on the north side of Santiam Pass, north of Ray Benson, there's a little snow park there, and that will allow you to get into the area that's shown in this picture. It was burned in the 2003 fire, so there's now beginning to be trees growing up in there, but still largely open country, great skiing. Later in the spring, again, there's like a window of time when you can drive fairly close to the Jack Lake trailhead, and then you can get up on the east side of Three Finger Jack, and that's where this was taken. And that's also, it's possible to do it as a tour without being telemark proficient, but if you are a telemark skier, it's a blast to come down from there. And that's what we have. So if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them. And yeah. Thank you for coming.
Is there kind of an average spacing in between the blue diamonds?
I'm sure there's an average space.
There's probably is an average. I'm not sure I know it. We try to make it so that if you're standing at a blue diamond, you can see at least two in either direction. That's not 100% guaranteed, because you put up the blue diamonds and then branches will grow or trees fall over that have markers on them. But in general, that's what we aim for. How many kilograms? Okay.
How many pounds? I can change pounds to kilograms.
I would say it's about 5 kilograms because it looks big and heavy, but it's mostly clothes, so it's not all that heavy. Anyone else?
How big is your pack? What is it? 40 liter?
This one's a 50, but again, okay. I carry for 2.
Yeah,
so
no, I carry a 40 liter. That's my day pack.
Yeah, and it's not stuffed usually, because I have to have room for whatever I take off the stuff in it. So.
Sue?
Will this be available on your website?
I'm going to post this on YouTube.
We'll have a link to it from our website. And all the maps and everything, all that information is on the website. So, and it's all open to non-members. You don't have to be a member to see it all. Anything else? And if anybody wants questions about gear or look at the gear or whatever, I think we have to be out of here at 7:30, so we haven't got a huge amount of time, but feel free to come up and we can take a look at stuff. So thank you for coming.
Thank you.